Hello and welcome to the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast, a proud member of the Marketing Podcast Network. It's December the 31st, New Year's Eve, and I'm your host, Ian Truscott. Hope you've been enjoying the holidays, and I hope you're well and staying as sane as you feel you need to be. It's been another year of sharing marketing street knowledge with the help of my band of marketing chums, and if you are new here, welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. This week, my regular co-hosts are off for the holidays, so it's just me for a solo episode. And as is customary at this time of year, as we say cheerio to 2025 and raise a glass to 2026, I'm going to reflect on the big topic that dominated this podcast this year. And it is, of course, AI. But first, I still need to pay the bar tab, so I'll be back in a moment.
We'll be right back. After this word. We'll be right back. After this word. We'll be right back.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
I was a bit torn on the topic for this summary. After all, while it seems AI has sucked all the oxygen out of the room when it comes to talking about B2B marketing, we've talked about a lot of other topics this year. But I can't deny that common thread has, of course, been AI. We've probably mentioned it in almost every show. So I'm going to go with our editorial policy and share 5 effing things about AI that have cropped up in my conversations with my chums, Jeff, Kathy, Simon, and Robert during this year. So the 5 I'm going to discuss are, the first one, don't lose what you learn on the creative or learning journey by pressing the AI easy button. Number 2, I think the jury is out on whether AI actually saves time for B2B content creators, and we'll discuss that. Number 3, the AI froth even will dissolve, and we'll be back to the fundamentals. Number 4, AI will disrupt search, organic reach, and engagement, and what are we going to do about that? And number 5, the impact of AI on the buyer's journey. So let's get started with number 1. Don't lose what you learn on the creative or learning journey by pressing the AI easy button. This definitely came through in the conversations with Robert on the creative process and Kathy and Jeff when we discussed using generative AI to help develop strategy. The consensus of our discussions is that for many tasks we can use AI for, we should consider what the task actually is. As for many creative and planning activities, doing the work is an essential part of the task. It's not just the output you get. So, for example, if you're writing, there's a learning process that happens as you develop the idea. Simply asking ChatGPT to create something skips this essential learning step. Similarly, when you're creating a strategy defining personas or any other planning task, part of the task is to do discovery. I would argue that when you're planning and you're working with a team on something like this, the socializing and co-ownership of the deliverable happens as you do this discovery and definition together. So then everybody sort of owns a piece of it. Everybody recognizes the personas or the customer journey or whatever it is that you're creating. And this is nothing new. All good consultants know this. You don't come into a business with a book of answers, even if you have a firm idea of what's needed. Your job is to take a company through the process so that there's that internal learning. That's what the gig is, right? And so we can start to think of AI as this external consultant, and you've got to choose when to apply them, when to not apply them. And the temptation right now, as Simon shared back in episode 277, is that leaders are being encouraged to throw AI at everything and demonstrate that we have an AI strategy. And we'll talk about that a bit more in a moment. Using AI is, of course, not a binary choice. Should you use AI for the activities or should you not? That genie is right out of the bottle already. What we need to do is make careful choices about how synthetic we want to be in all of these things that we work on. So that's number 1. We shouldn't rob ourselves of what we'll learn on the journey of doing the work. The second one that I've observed and learned from my co-conspirators on this particular podcast is it seems the jury is out on whether AI actually saves time for B2B content creators, which seems a little bit counterintuitive because you can just type a prompt into ChatGPT and away we go. We've got a blog post. But this was an interesting point that cropped up a few times in the virtual bar conversations with Robert that we do on a Saturday morning, or we record it on Friday night. As a content marketing expert, author of several books, and a prolific content creator, we dug into Robert's process for using generative AI. And what really resonated with me as our use of these tools matures, and I'm finding this myself, is that using AI in the writing process for research opens up new threads and rabbit holes to dive into, which enrich the writing, enrich the process, and it creates a better end product because it's better research, right? Because now we have access to the world's knowledge, right, with these tools. But it actually slows the process down. And this is what Robert was talking about. It actually takes him longer to get a piece of work done, although, of course, the work is better for going through that process. And this was also true when I was chatting to Robert about his music and video projects. He's created a whole artist called Layla Ray Hightower. I'd recommend you have a look at that he's been working on. And he's created video and he's created music. And while it is democratizing this creative process, so we all have access to these tools and we can all create these things, it does take a lot more time investment than one would expect. So therefore, I think that even if we as B2B content creators have access to these tools, actually using them is actually going to take us more time. And if you think that previously we'd have outsourced this stuff to our agency or designers or creators. And I started to wonder if it's a bit like the old project management maxim, that triangle that you can draw with good, fast, and cheap at each of those 3 points. And then you say you can't have something that's all three. You have to pick two. It's either good and fast, or it's either good and expensive, or it's fast and cheap, whatever it is. You know the triangle I mean. And as we deepen our use of the AI tools, I wonder if it all seeing that we'll find these decisions that we need to make. We can quickly create lightweight, generic content. But if we want to do anything meaningful, that time saving that you might have thought that you might have get seems negligible, particularly as now, that old phrase we've talked about this on the podcast, is that business users are now empowered. Well, do we really want to be empowered? Do we want to spend the next 3 hours creating a blog post, or do we want to outsource that to our writers like we've always done? And so it seems that that's the sort of thing that we need to be looking at. So that's number 2. Will AI really save time for B2B content creators? And I think the jury might be out on that one. So that leads me to my number 3. The feeling that this AI froth will dissolve and we'll go back to the marketing fundamentals. And this point was made quite a few times by all my chums on the show. And you could wonder, actually, we're all kind of seasoned professionals, I guess you can call us. And maybe you wonder if this is a bit of wishful thinking from all of us, right? We like our fundamentals. But I think experience of previous trends tells us that these things really do follow the old Gartner hype cycle, if you're familiar with that all this frothy hype of AI will dissolve at some point, and possibly in 2026. And when I talk about froth, I'm not talking about the potential share price bubble and the inflated value of these companies or any of that stuff and the dot-com boom and all the analogies that we can make, but really the hype around using and deploying these tools and the language within our organization, within our marketing teams of what we do. I think Robert made a really good point. He talks about having an AI strategy will be as ridiculous as having an electricity strategy going forward in 2026, right? It's because AI is going to be so pervasive. It's just part of our tooling, part of what we have available. It's part of what we do. And both Jeff and Kathy talked about how AI will just be embedded in our tools and processes. It's just we're going to need to make some decisions about that. And in fact, back in episode 289, Jeff and I ran through our 5 effing marketing fundamentals, and we shared how AI would augment them, but it doesn't change the need for them, right? So we're still going to need to focus on what it is that we do as senior marketing leaders and as CMOs. But of course, AI is going to help us with that. But AI, we're not doing it for the purpose. AI itself isn't a strategy. We still need to do the fundamental things, and AI is going to help us with that. And the other point that was made in many of the episodes, especially with Kathy, that it was that we shouldn't be throwing AI at automating bad processes. We just fail faster and potentially more spectacularly and at scale, right? If you've got a shitty BD sequence and you're sending out crappy emails, sending out more of them and they're written by AI isn't going to help solve the problem. Again, that sort of points to a shift back to the fundamentals and not using AI just for AI's sake. So that's number 3. Like any marketing technology, we'll get over the hype, I guess, hopefully in 2026, and focus on what it actually does for us and try and get back to our fundamentals. Which leads me to number 4. And this is a really interesting topic that is going to be difficult to do justice in just this sort of summary, this summary episode, because it's about the fact that AI will disrupt search, organic reach, and engagement. Really big topics for us as B2B marketers, right? Is that we have our playbook for how we reach our audience, either through paid or organic search. And that's starting to really fundamentally change and move away. And we had some really interesting conversations on this. And a lot has changed during this year, of course, especially as Google introduced its AI summaries. And there is a perspective that Google will continue to evolve this further, this search experience that we've got, into actually creating dynamic AI-generated web experiences based on the search term. So effectively, what it's going to give you is a custom website built around the term that we've used, with all of the information already on it that it's drawn from the various sources. And it seems unclear then how it is that we're going to break into that experience, either through our paid ads or through being or through getting linky lugged through the search terms, right? Through the links. So the future of organic discovery seems increasingly uncertain, and even the future efficacy of Google's cash cow, its ads, is unclear, as we're not sure how sponsored links would feature in this new experience. I did, however, break my rule of just sticking with my regular guests. I don't really do guests anymore on the podcast. If you've listened for a long time, you know that I used to do a lot of guests, and now I just stick to the half a dozen folks that I just talked about. But I did invite back on the show Thomas Peaham. He's used to be the CMO of Storyblock, and now he's the co-founder of a GEO or AIO. I don't know which term you're using, but you know, the generative AI optimization platform, and his platform is called Otterly. And he came on to discuss how we make our content show up in the tools like ChatGPT and how you can track this. But then Robert's made the point that should we? An interesting tension that Robert discussed, and I think this was quite a few months ago, so maybe this thinking is starting to change. But he did discuss a few times as to whether we need to learn from the lessons of the past. When we allowed Google to index all of our stuff, we prostituted our content in return for linky love. But ultimately, Google now owns this transaction, right? So we now find ourselves in a position where Google has made a change and the old rules don't apply anymore, but it already has all of our content, and we're at the mercy of those decisions. The same as on any rented land platform, right? Whether it's LinkedIn, TikTok, or anything, has changed the algorithm, and suddenly we can disappear. So he's contended that we should have some of our good content reserved for our subscribed communities behind a registration page or on a newsletter. That's something the LLMs can't get to, right? And so we're not educating the LLMs so they can just simply regurgitate our content without any attribution. And it's going to be interesting to see how all this goes, because that's a significant change. And I think that the drive at the moment is everybody wants to treat the LLMs the same way as they treated Google back in the day, is that we want to educate it, and we're hoping that it will repay us with some linky love. And it's interesting to see whether that's playing out. But what's really clear is the old rules of organic discovery by the search engines with SEO are changing. And it'll be interesting to see how these companies look to monetize our search behavior. And when I say these companies, I mean these LLM companies and even Google itself, as Google has done successfully for years, and how this will change our paid ad strategies. I mean, obviously, we're going to pay for eyeballs, but how is this going to work? And what we've also seen this year is the cost of these things has gone up. So whilst organic has been a lot more difficult to break through, so therefore the paid products now seem to be getting more and more expensive. It's now getting more and more expensive to get in front of our audience. That tax we all have to pay as marketers is getting to be quite a big chunk of what our budgets are going to be. So that's number 4, and it's a big fat question. Like I say, a really hard one to cover just in a quick summary over where this search and discovery disruption will lead. And I would assume that we'll have a number of conversations about this during 2026 with my guests. And if you're interested in, a particular aspect of this, I'd love to hear from you. And then maybe I break my rule and have you on the show. So finally, let's get to number 5, the impact of AI on the buyer's journey. Now, this is really interesting, and Jeff and I covered this a lot because we covered a lot of B2B buying research this year. It tends to be, our stick of what we do. We look at a lot of reports and we grab normally 5 effing things out of these reports that came to us. And one of the things that we saw from the studies that we looked at, that buyers are continually getting better educated on the problem they want to solve, the potential solutions, the category of those solutions before they put their hands up and interact with the vendors, which, as you've heard us, if you're a regular listener, you've heard us talk about this a lot, which suggested a need for us to invest in brand marketing to be considered during this initial research phase. It seems, that there is a definite role for marketing to get ahead of this and get in front of the potential buyer before they come into the market, which is obviously not a trend that was just started by AI. It's just exacerbating that. And it's been recognized for some time. And you've heard us talk about, and you've probably heard it, the whole internet, anything on LinkedIn talk about, the 95-5% rule that LinkedIn has popularized, that 95% of your audience aren't in market today and only 5% are. So you need to try and get in front of that 95%. And maybe if you're a regular listener, you might be tired of hearing us talking about it, but we talked about various permutations of that. And I think AI is really going to drive that even more because the buyer is getting more and more educated before they ever touch us, right, as vendors. So there's almost now another persona in the buying group, the buyer's AI assistant. And it's something we're seeing in all aspects of business. I think I shared this story on the podcast before. I chatted with a sales leader who's dealing with his CEO, and that CEO is driving all his decisions through ChatGPT. So my chum, I actually wrote about this on my Tuesday 2 cents column. So my chum is dealing with this silent yes man who's sitting in the room with them, right, which is ChatGPT. And this trend also impacts the marketing and sales dynamic, as we discussed this year, that the early steps of some of the classic sales methodologies are now something that marketing needs to be doing in a world where buyers are only meeting the seller when they've done their research and have a shortlist. The seller's opportunity to educate the buyer has been seriously curtailed by all of this, right? So any of these old models where the seller is going to sort of re-educate, redefine the vision of the buyer, those days have gone, right? That needs to now happen in our content marketing, our marketing, and our brand marketing, so that the buyer arrives in market with a certain view of how to solve the problem, our view of how to solve the problem, to be specific. So that's number 5. So that's my 5th. That's my last. AI is definitely part of the buying group, and that's it. 5 effing things I picked up this year in our discussion about AI, which were: number 1, don't lose what you learn on the creative or learning journey by pressing the AI easy button. Number 2, I think maybe the jury's out on whether AI actually saves time for B2B content creators. Number 3, the AI froth will dissolve surely in 2026, and we're back to talking about the marketing fundamentals. Number 4, AI will disrupt search, organic reach, and engagement. It's just that it's very unclear of what's going to happen through that disruption. And then my number 5 was talk about the impact of AI on the buyer's journey. I think we're going to be talking about that a lot more in 2026 as well. So those are my points. I kind of focused on AI. I've published twice a week for most of this year, so I had to pick from around 100 episodes, loads of splendid conversations. So picking 5 things was not easy. So I'd love to hear your view on my picks. So that's a wrap on this special solo episode of the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast. I've been your host, Ian Truscott, managing partner at Velocity B, and you can find me on LinkedIn or all of my links in the show notes on rockstarcmo.com, or just search Rockstar CMO or Velocity B, and I'm sure you'll find me. I'd love to hear from you. But most of all, thanks for putting your dime into your podcasting jukebox, picking our track and driving along with us this year. I'm glad you've been here. Coming up for us this week on Rockstar CMO and in 2026, we have Robert back in the bar on Saturday after his holiday break. And similarly, I'm looking forward to catching up with Jeff next Wednesday. So I hope you join us for some of that here on Rockstar CMO FM.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.